Welcome to another episode of the TUE Brew Review. This week we are checking out a little something something. It's a West Coast wheated IPA from the folks at Lagunitas Brewing Company. So this brewing company, it's very well known, highly regarded. They were actually founded out in Petaluma, California in the early 90s by a couple of hopheads. And they say that lovingly because they've always brewed with a relationship between beer and cannabis, because cannabis and the hops that are used as the spice of beer are related. They're basically they're cousins, but they both contain a chemical called terpenes. But hops lack that enzyme that marijuana does that actually converts the terpenes into things like THC or CBD. So these guys were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of experimenting with cannabis-infused drinks, which they still do today. But these guys are very popular on the West Coast, built up quite a following in the 90s and the early aughts. And I think around 2009, I believe they opened a tap room and brewery in Chicago. And they took the Chicago area by storm. And in the early 2010s, they were one of the top-selling craft brands because everybody was into the IPAs, especially the West Coast style, hop-forward IPAs that these guys love to produce. They have since, unfortunately, here recently, as has been reported, they are shutting down their tap room and brewing operations in Chicago, and they're going to move it all out to California. So they're still going to continue to make their great beers, as well as they make some other interesting products. They make one of the first breweries out there that I saw that made hop-infused water for those who are looking for an NA alternative but still want to get their hop swerve on. And as I mentioned before, they've actually made some cannabis brews. So they've been occupying that space. So these guys were actually bought out by Heineken. I think partially bought out around 2015, and then a couple of years later, Heineken basically bought the whole thing. And that was really to increase the overseas distribution, because IPAs were not only catching on here in the U.S., but also abroad. So their movement away from the Chicago area market, they'll still have product here, but just the fact that they're consolidating their brewing operations, I think it just speaks to the industry as a whole. There has been a bit of a changing tide in the craft beer industry. Raw material costs are up. There isn't quite as much demand, and there's seems to be more competition out there for other craft beers. Plus, you've got your seltzers and your ready-to-drink cocktails. So there's a lot of different options out there that are putting pressure on the craft beer market. So we're seeing more and more maneuvers of breweries either closing or, in the case of Lagunitas, consolidating. So enough of my yapping. Let's get into this beer. This is one that I always see around. You'll see it on tap. It's widely distributed, mainly behind the power of Heineken and their distribution capabilities. But I got to be honest, I haven't drank this in a while because you end up trying all the local stuff that's come about, and I've kind of moved away from trying a Lagunitas. So I'm kind of excited to rip into this one because it's been a while. So the can, first of all, you'll always see the dog on the Lagunitas can. They say that they don't have a particular dog mascot. They actually fashioned this after the terrier Petey that was featured in the Little Rascals episodes of yore, for those of us of a certain age. It says it's a wheat IPA, so obviously an addition of wheat to the grain bill. 7.5 ABV. So yeah, these West Coast IPAs usually run north of 7%. We've got some other information. We got 52 IBUs. That's the International Bittering Unit Scale. Usually IPAs start in the right around 50 to 55 and up. So that's kind of actually at the low end of the IPA spectrum. And it's got a original gravity of 1065, which is a measure of the density of the liquid before you add the yeast, and it converts those sugars into alcohol and CO2. So enough yapping. Let's get into this. Here we go. So we got a really nice, kind of a bright gold color. It's actually, being a wheat IPA, I thought it'd be a little more cloudy, but actually it's got a really pretty transparent color for wheat beer. Wheat has more protein. Sometimes that clouds the product, but this that's relatively clear. But the wheat is definitely helping with the head. You get this nice, rich, clingy, white, foamy head that's very appealing. Oh yeah, great aromas. Getting that classic West Coast pine hop, but also getting a lot of the bread, like toasty bread type of characteristics. Again, some of that's coming from that wheat. Cheers. Nice. That, again, West Coast dank flavor. Big, like hop bite. Not the super fruity hop bite. It's more of a piney herbal type of hop bite, not the tropical that you get in kind of the New England IPAs that kind of came after the West Coast IPAs. I really like the malt foundation on this. And again, I think it's helped some by the addition of wheat. It's, granted, it's an IPA, but it's got a really nice malt foundation. Gives it a nice kind of medium to full body and flavor. And that hops has a very pleasant, lingering profile to it. Man, this is just like classic West Coast IPA. This is absolutely delicious. And again, I've kind of moved away from West Coast IPAs. I don't have them much, and I haven't had this one in years. So unfortunately, it took the news of them closing the brewery in Chicago for me to say, I need to try those guys out again. So I'm glad I did. I need to seek this out more often. So whether they're making it in the Chicagoland area or making it out in California, let's hope that the fine folks at Lagunitas continue to make these delicious West Coast style IPAs. So there you have it. Lagunitas, a little something something, wheat IPA. Cheers.